Oh, folks, we are back. It is time for the RotoWire Rundown. I am, of course, Keith Stewart from Read the Line, and I am joined by the one, the only, the award-winning scribe from RotoWire, senior golf writer Len Hochberg. Len, how are you on this wonderful Tuesday morning? A little earlier than usual. Did the rooster go off early? What happened, my friend?
I appreciate the flexibility, partner. Just some things going on here on the West Coast, and got to get a move and start the day. So thank you for this.
I mean, for me, it's easy. That's 10:45 in the morning. Happy to do it and happy to sit here and talk about the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. Now, before we go there seems to be a lot of hubbub going along on the internet about whether or not these fall events really carry the stature of a PGA Tour, sanctioned reward event. Per se, and a couple of things that are going on there. One, obviously, we're using these events for FedEx Cup points, the top 125, 51 through 60, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that kind of gets overlooked all the time is that the guys that win these events, so Austin Eck wrote last week, a couple weeks ago, Kevin Yu, maybe at the Sanderson, these guys get Masters invites. The toughest ticket outside of a team event, playing for your country in a Ryder Cup or the President's Cup or something, the Masters has to be the toughest ticket to get, and obviously one of the most coveted. So it begs the discussion for a moment, and a bunch of pundits were writing about this, is that are the fields worthy in the fall for this FedEx Cup fall for earning your way into the Masters? I mean, I know why the PGA Tour does it, because they're trying to make the best fields that they can, and that's a pretty huge carrot. But have we gotten to the point with all the change that's going on? I mean, how do you feel about this? You and I haven't discussed this yet, but I wanted to poke the bear and see what I come up with.
Yeah, and I have been giving it some thought. I did see the chatter on wherever in social media and stuff. And my initial thought was, this is a real PGA Tour event. It's a full field event. It's a full points event. That's the key terminology. These guys certainly do warrant Masters invites. But then I started to give it a little more thought and thought, these really are weak fields and things. And maybe, it's not like the Masters has been bumping close to 100, in the fields or anything.
Yeah.
So that's not the issue. I understand the concern here about the weakness of the fields, and I thought maybe they shouldn't. But then I started to give it even more thought. And if we let it go for a couple of years, because in 2026, if the proposed draconian changes take place on the PGA Tour and tour cards are limited to 100 players, these fall events will maybe unintended consequence or intended consequence. They will get better fields. They will get players in the 80s in the FedEx Cup standings, and certainly in the 90s, trying to keep their cards to stay inside the top 100. So if they don't make this move and determine that they should not get a Masters invite from these tournaments, if they wait a couple of years, not next year or 2025, it'll still be the same. This is for 2026, these changes. I think the fields will get, somewhat better, and maybe even a lot better. And then you have other guys still trying to get into the 51st to 60th position if that continues the next 10. So I think things will get better for these tournaments in a couple of years.
You bring up a number of different things there. Not to get off on a quick tangent, but have you noticed what's happened in the field size the last 2 weeks? So a year ago in Mexico for the Worldwide Technology Championship, it was 132 players. Last week it was 120. That last year for Butterfield Bermuda, it was 132 players. This year it's 120. So, I mean, I know everyone's making a big deal, and I know you were upset about that, but this is already happening, it seems like. And it's just kind of like, I don't know if it's getting swept under the rug or what's going on. But when you bring up the field size, and my point last week was that it's going to make those top 100 players better. Yeah, it could be an unintended consequence. But as it stands right now, the average world ranking of our fall winners before they won, and they got a big bump in their OWGR, was 147. Right. And in order to qualify for the Masters, obviously, if you win it, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the big ways to get in for the average tour players, they have to be ranked top 50 in the world. I mean, these guys are basically ranked 150th in the world that are winning in the fall, outside of 2 guys which are inside the top 40. Um, it seems to me like, man, oh man, like that it these aren't necessarily the players that we're looking to put in the Masters, because these guys certainly aren't going to win the Masters, right? I don't see Patton Kizzire rolling up and getting a green jacket anytime soon. Starting out, he was ranked 257 in the world when he won the Pro Tour. And then the other thing is strength of field. The 6 previous events that we've had so far, they've had an average of 4 players in the top 50, to use that number again, in the world rankings in the field. Just an average of 4 players in the top 50, and those are the people that they're going to be playing against in the Masters. So I don't mean to be like the bearer of bad news, but like years ago, more guys were playing in these fall events. We had the CJ Cup, we had more events like the Zozo where we were getting actual players. Now that those top 50 guys have earned their points and they're locked in for those signature events, you're taking the best players in the world and you're telling them you could have the fall off, but then we're giving these other guys an opportunity to get in the Masters. I don't know. I don't know if it matches up. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, Len, we just add it to the list of things that we got to fix, right? But I mean, that's my take on it, is that, I mean, an average of 4 guys in the top 50 in the official world golf rankings. I mean,
Well, couple of thoughts based on what you just said,
yeah,
and you're making me think, and it's pretty early to start thinking out here. Um,
I love it.
these guys, someone number 150th in the world, could play the Honda. I know it's not the Honda, the
Yeah.
Cognizant, and win again, and still be 150th in the world, and then get into, maybe, I don't know, what was Austin Eckroat when he won the Cognizant. He probably wasn't as far back as 150th, but he wasn't that far. So these guys can still win tournaments, much harder and stronger fields. And Nico won the Zozo, and that was a strong field. And what was he? He was about 300th in the world or something. I probably shouldn't say that because I have no idea what he was. But
You're right, 292.
okay, so
It's
it was
292.
so he was 292, and he beat Schauffele and Morikawa and Hideki, and so he clearly, you can't say to him, that's a fall event, you don't deserve to get in. So what are you going to do? You're going to just pick the Zozo, which is always the signature event of the fall. So there are a lot of nuances here, and I am
Yeah.
sure that the Augusta National is thinking about all of this. They do all of their homework and legwork before saying one word. If anything, they are very measured,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they're considering this now. But I think if they wait 2 years, they'll see some better winners in these events.
Well, much like the Masters, you, my friend, are very measured when it comes to building your lineups. So I appreciate the easy transition here. Let's talk about the Butterfield Bermuda Championship. I mean, there's no doubt that we could go back and forth on the Masters invite there. What it really comes down to is that we need to design a better fall or a better long-term schedule. And it seems like hopefully the PGA Tour is working on all that and putting it all together. People seem very positive around Ponte Vedra that the PIF framework and some other things are actually moving forward. So fingers crossed that you and I need to do a special edition rundown in December or something to talk about what's going on in the world of golf outside of Tiger playing with Charlie Woods. So Butterfield Bermuda Championship, skills needed to win. You're building lineups, another B there. And what are you looking for this week? And this week in particular, because it seems like it's going to blow a little bit out there in Bermuda, more so than it usually does. And I'm wondering how you're constructing your own framework for your fantasy lineups.
Yeah, the weather is a huge thing, and I just posted my article on Twitter and mentioned that weather will be a factor, and everyone should wait till the last possible minute for the latest weather and to see if there's an advantage to a tee time. And very often with these things, if there's rain and wind in the forecast,
Yeah.
or maybe not so rainy on Thursday, but windy every day and rainy the last 3 days. And of course, that is subject to change, move up, move back, whatever. So people should wait. And my experience with these things, that I usually like in that scenario to go with the late, I'm getting myself confused here, the late early tee time. I want my guy to finish on Friday. I
Yeah.
don't want
Okay.
my guy. I don't want my guy bleeding into Saturday morning to play 6 holes at the crack of dawn to try and make the cut. So, I like the guys who can stay on schedule the best. So I would, beside if there's unless there's some freak thing where late early is just the worst thing weather wise, and I would lean that way. But yeah, the over under at golfodds.com, Jeff Sherman, 13 and a half. Last year, the winning score was 24 under. We've seen 24 under a couple of years. So this looks pretty darn severe. So, it's right by the ocean. It's Bermuda. It's tiny. The course is short, 6,800 yards. They don't even need driver. Which will probably be helpful because you want to just try and keep the ball in the fairway as best as possible in these windy conditions and not get the ball in the water and any kind of water. So I kind of think that maybe this weather would, while you normally have to make a ton of putts to contend and win this tournament, I'm thinking that there is really an added emphasis on ball striking to the point that I will maybe minimize putting because you have to be the ball striker this week, or you're not even going to get a chance to putt.
Yeah, I'm with you there in lockstep on a number of those things. You mentioned ball striking last. I'll go there first. You have to have trajectory control. These guys are hitting wedges into all of these greens at 6,800 yards. Bermuda itself as an island is the top of a volcano rim. I mean, it juts out of the ocean, so you know that you're getting a lot of terrain changes, and you're totally exposed. The first 5 holes are kind of inland, and I wouldn't call them protected because you're on an island, but that's where you've got to make your hay. But then 6 through 18. You are out there for the wind to just like waste you away. And I would be very careful with people that cannot control their trajectory when they're hitting their wedges. I mean, if you've ever been to a tour event, anybody that's watching this, the first thing that always catches everyone's attention is that everyone hits their long irons and their drivers really high and they hit their wedges really low, which is the opposite of what you see at the local muni course. So trajectory control is a big one for me, especially with the elevation changes. You're hitting uphill, downhill, and you're exposed to the wind. Another thing is that the par threes there are brutal. The last 3 are 3 of the toughest holes on the golf course, 8, 13, and 16. They're all over 200 yards. 16, the left side of it is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. It's 235. Obviously, they'll probably play it up with that sort of wind, but that one will play into the wind because the wind that we're talking about that's 25 to 30 miles an hour is coming out of the northwest, which is the direction that hole points. And speaking of points, I'm pointing towards definitely people that can putt on Bermuda grass. There's no doubt that, Bermuda grass comes from Bermuda in such a way that, it is a type of agronomy that is super, super grainy out there because of the humidity and also the island nature that you're dealing with out there. The salt air, everything, checks all the boxes above is that, you're going to get inside 10 feet some super grainy putts. And we've got to have guys that are good in Florida putting on Bermuda and the guys that are good, also in Mexico. The Paspalum is also super grainy, but Bermuda, it almost seems to be like a grain in and of itself. And those guys always seem to excel when it comes to putting out in Florida and or out here in Bermuda. And with the wind, I'm definitely going to favor a little bit of scrambling. I mean, guys are going to miss some greens. I know the greens here are pretty big because they have to be because it's normally windy out there, 8,000 square feet on average. But overall, I mean, hitting close with proximity, I really feel like these guys are going to miss a couple of greens and then chipping from Bermuda. So I like the guys that have really good short games in Florida that are used to playing on Bermuda grass surfaces, in and around these green complexes, guys that are good from the bunker. So guys that can scramble and save their round. I mean, we're talking about shooting maybe like 3 under a round, and you're going to be in contention come Sunday because of the weather. I'm with you on AM, PM. It looks like the rain comes in Friday night and then extends through most of midday Saturday. So I think if you can get your PM, AM rounds in, that you're going to feel pretty good about. I mean, you're going to get beat up in the wind on Thursday afternoon, but you get off quick on Friday morning. You could preserve yourself, and then I'm with you. I mean, I don't like hanging out, waiting to play 3 more holes on Saturday morning if I can avoid it. So that's where my head's at when I was picking my betting selections for this week. And it's good to hear that a lot of those things we're featuring in the same light. Fantasy lineups, 10,000.
Well, can I get a question? Because I thought of
Go ahead.
something and talk about you got to be a good putter and putting on Bermuda. Well, if it's windy, if the greens are wet, and I know there's drainage systems and all of that and stuff
Yep.
to dry them out as best as possible, but if they're playing in the rain and the wind, does that favor still the better putters, or does that negate some of their advantages and bring the lesser putters into play?
On weeks like this, I definitely throw in the model, guys that can make putts inside 10 feet. Because at the end of the day, they will make more putts inside 10 feet than the guy that doesn't normally, right? Like we're gonna have more 4 to 6, 8-foot putts than we normally would have because guys aren't going to be able to hit it as close. They're going to be chipping. There's going to be adverse conditions, and I still want to favor those guys. So definitely, I mean, they won't make as many as they used to, or as they normally do, but then a guy that's ranked beneath them, he's going to miss more also. So I'm really concerned about the guys that can make the short putts, especially they've proven they can do it on Bermuda grass. That's where my head's at on that for sure. And almost to the point where almost any like really Bermuda grass, grainy type greens place, I almost always am very concerned with who makes putts, between 4 and 6 feet. It's just, it seems like we have a million of those happen. And then in these windy conditions, I think you're going to have a million plus 10, and I'm still going to take those guys. All right. Lineups, DFS, we'll start there with you, 10K range. We've got 2 guys, not household names, Mac Hughes and Seamus Power, but are you picking one or are you saving some room further down the board?
Yeah, I could see going with one. I picked Power. He's had a very good fall. He's had a bunch of, or rolling back even to the pre-playoffs, he's had a bunch of top 15s, and he hasn't been able to crack that threshold into the top 10s. And to me, that's so significant of a guy who does everything well but putts, and he can't take that next level to get a few more strokes off his game, off his number to get into the top 10. But he won this tournament 2 years ago. He's playing well. Some of the guys who aren't putting very well, who aren't good putters, well, in this field, they're not such bad putters. Yeah, if you put them in a regular tour event in the middle of in June and May and stuff, and all the big guys are there, or a lot of the bigger names are there, but there are so many names and that aren't here, and it's so hard to. So many of these guys are not even known entities. And again, for the second week in a row, I'm looking in the 6,000s. Who am I going to pick? It's just impossible. And then the guy I wanted to pick, Taylor Montgomery, I'm getting ahead of myself. I couldn't find him anywhere. He withdrew because he's the best putter in the field. He pulled out of the tournament. He made the cut last week. So really hard. And so guy like Seamus Power, who's not a great putter, is a significantly better putter in this field than we normally would give him credit for.
And a great, to go back to my point from earlier, a guy who can really control his trajectory with his wedges. He's always played good at Pebble Beach, which is windy, plays good here. So certainly somebody, I'm with you there. Mac Hughes hasn't played here yet. He is a rookie as far as heading into playing here at Port Royal. And I think that, definitely gives Power a huge edge over him in the 10K land. 9K, we've got 9 guys. Bermuda Ben Griffin is there. Great approach player, great putter on Bermuda. Are you going with Ben, or who else are you taking in the 9K range?
My first, I did not go with Ben, and I can see why that would be certainly consideration, if not more than a consideration, a pick. But Matty Schmidt, who missed the cut last week, he finally had an off week. But Matty Schmidt finished 3rd here last year before he was Matty Schmidt, before he was playing really well like he is now. So he obviously liked something here last year. And so I'm going to go back to him and not just disregard him just because he missed a cut last year, last week. Justin Lauer. What am I? I'm getting there's too many J's. Justin Lauer. He played well last week. He's had a very good fall, but he's also played this tournament very well. And he's a very good putter. And, he's had his best finish ever on the PGA Tour. He played his first PGA Tour event back in 2013, and he just finished runner-up last week. So he's riding high. He secured his card. And the third guy I like is Patrick Rogers. We talk about guys looking for their first wins, and we're talking about Greiserman and, Cam Young, and he's not in this field, but guys who don't have a win, who should have a win, who could have a win. Well, Patrick Rogers been around so long, we've forgotten to even talk about him. Still looking for a win, and wouldn't surprise me if it came this week.
I mean, he's had great success here, so he is a good pickup for sure. 8,000s. We have the guy who won the Zozo. We were talking about him earlier, Nico Echevarria, right? But he backed it up at the Worldwide Technology Championship with a T6. So does Nico get on your list in 8K land, or who are you featuring in the 8,000s for
Yeah,
the Bermuda Championship?
yeah. This is we talked about this last week. This is sort of a DraftKings DFS dead zone for me very often, and it is this week. I only really liked one guy, and he's the bottom of the eights. He's at 8,000. Bridgman. He's had two top 15s in the fall. He's been playing well. Sixth on tour in strokes gained putting. I guess I was looking for, I didn't like a lot here and just wanted to save a few dollars and go toward the bottom. I don't see anyone having an edge over him, and he's the cheapest price.
Well, I tell you what, Bridgman is another guy, checks those two boxes. Good on approach, great putter, ranked top 5 putter in the field, even on Bermuda grass. I love me a little Jacob Bridgman this week. 7,000s down there. I have a question real quick you touch upon. When you get down here, is it current form or horses for courses that kind of breaks the tie for you on a guy that you might be featuring in the 7,000s?
Not to not answer the question, but I think it's an individual basis.
All right.
Sometimes, if the guy has missed 6 cuts in a row but plays well here, and how well has he played here? Is he just making cuts here? Is he finishing top 10 here? So it's not such a one size fits all answer. Trying to remember, there was Troy Merritt earlier this year. I guess it was the 3M or the Rocket Mortgage or one.
Oh, the Rocket for Troy Merritt for sure.
Yeah, and but he was so bad every year coming into this tournament, but he multiple times he's done well at that tournament, the Rocket Mortgage, despite playing poorly coming in. So at that point, a guy like that, well, then current form doesn't seem to matter to him. It seems that it's his get out of jail free card, his get well fast card to go to the Rocket Mortgage. So every situation is different. I don't think you can do one size fits all.
So based upon that, then who are you featuring in 7K land?
Vince Whaley, top 10s here.
Yep.
2 of the past 3 years. He has a lot to play for this week. He's 123rd in points. So he's got a lot on the line. I'm sure he's very happy to be coming to a place he's played very well. And I'm going to go with 2 guys who aren't good putters, who maybe if the wind and if the weather was different, I would not have been so in on. But like I said, I think we just really need to control the golf ball this week. Joel Damon, 121st, maybe almost definitely secure for, he can only fall 4 places. Well, you have to fall 5 over the next 2 weeks. That's possible. But so I think he's really grinding and has a lot to play for, and such a better player if he could putt just a little bit. He wouldn't even be worried about his top 125. He wouldn't even be in this tournament. And David Lipsky, another guy, just not a great putter, but he coming off a T6 in Mexico last week where you have to make a lot of putts, and he's still got himself a top 10. So I like those 3 guys here.
Lipsky, great approach player. Great choice there. Down in the 6K land, last week I made fun of Taylor Montgomery, and there he was in the first round. He popped for you. Of course, Len owns. He's the king of 6K. That there's no doubt about it, or 5K if you want to go to the true basement. I got a name for you. New Jersey's Ryan McCormick. The kid's been playing pretty good. His dad's a PGA pro at a local club here, a friend of mine. Do you like somebody like Ryan McCormick this week? Or, Len, who do you like down in the 6,000s?
I barely know who Ryan McCormick is, so I don't even know if I like him. I really struggled here, and I will say, if I can, just pat myself on the back here, that last week the other 6,000 beside Taylor Montgomery, who did make the cut, was Wesley Bryan, who tied for 6th in the 6,000s, and he's quite a nice story. But he's up at 7,500. He got a huge boost. But when you were talking at the beginning, and I dismissed him because of that price, but then when you were talking about the beginning about guys who can really control their wedges and everything around the green and stuff, well, he's a wizard with his wedge, right?
Oh, yeah.
So So maybe I should revisit that, or at least throw that out to people who are watching here. I won't change my picks, which are live on the site, but maybe give him a second look, even at $7,500. But two guys here, and this is, I don't even, Martin
Here we
Laird.
go.
Martin
Ooh,
Laird.
all right.
I don't know. He plays in Scotland. He's from Scotland. He knows it's windy. He's been in the wind before. So I don't
Russell
know.
Knox used to play great there. He's from Scotland.
Yeah. So you know what? And the other guy I'm picking is unbelievable is Sean O'Hare. He's $6,500. He hasn't made a cut since the Obama administration. But he's made the cut here 3 years in a row, all seriousness. And the thing about both of these guys is they're older guys. Laird is in his 40s. O'Hare might be in his 40s or pretty close to it. He's been around a long time. And what I kind of think, and this is so subjective and so nuanced and hard to gauge and stuff, but when the weather is stopping and starting, and I don't know that to be the case, but it could be the case where there's stops and starts and frustrating and wind and stuff, that maybe the older guys have been around a longer time, have just seen it all, and just stuff doesn't bother them as much anymore. I know stuff doesn't bother me as much anymore. And when I've gotten older, and maybe the younger guys will be frustrated and like, what am I even doing here? I should just go home. And the older guys may be more patient in the trying conditions.
Well, the older guys probably just feel good they're out in Bermuda, rather than the guys think of it, just a lot of times, younger folks, they tend to be a little bit more impetuous, like they're like, what am I doing next? What am I doing next? Those guys are like, they're sitting back playing cards in the grill room. Like, guys, we're not going anywhere, and we could all learn a lot from that. Betting side, I'm going to go with Ben Griffin. I mentioned him earlier at plus 2,000. I think at the top of the board near the favorites. He's got the two skills that I'm really concerned about this week. He's 15th. He's ranked 15th in the field in approach, and he's ranked second in putting. He is excellent on Bermuda grass greens. He's got 3 top 25s in his last 4 starts, and in 2022, he could have won this tournament. He's had a really nice fall. I think Ben Griffin is somebody to really pay attention to this week. And then the second guy is Andrew Putnam, plus 3,500. Another guy. He's at the top of the field of both approach and putting, and has proven as a PGA Tour winner that he can get the job done in these weaker field events. Certainly a positional golf course like this where you get hit a ton of wedges and make a ton of birdies in whatever kind of conditions. Andrew Putnam's had a very nice fall. He's got 4 top 30s in 6 fall starts, which, for me, I think in a field like this lends itself to a guy that who's played nicely here before. Both he and Griffin have experience here on the property. I think that really helps. The last couple winners here, outside of Lucas Herbert and obviously the first one, Brendan Todd, but the other guys, they've all played here before a couple times. Even Camilo Villegas last year, he played here a couple times before he actually won. So I'm favoring that as well. And the one thing that I'm going to throw out to everybody before we get out of here this week is that make sure you're watching, and Len has brought this up a number of times today. Make sure you're watching what's going on with the points. These guys have to be uber motivated to get the job done. 12 of the guys ranked between 51 and 70, fighting for that 51 to 60 slot for signature. 12 of those 20 guys are here playing in Bermuda. And I bet you more than half of them wouldn't normally be here. And then the other one is ranked between 115 and 135. The guys fighting for that top 125, 19 of those 20 are in the field. So if you don't think that's motivation, and you look at some of those names that are there, normally those guys wouldn't be here in the fall, and they are here fighting for their careers and their 2025 tour card. Now, Len and I, sometimes we like to fight, but it's not too often. But you can definitely catch us. Thanks to everyone that showed up, put comments in there this morning. We appreciate you all being here. Feel free to ask questions next week. But for now, the rundown's over. We'll be back for the RSM Classic next week. I'll be in Sea Island. Len will still be out there in LA. And we'll tear it up over what happens with the last week of the PGA Tour season right there prior to Thanksgiving. I'll see you in a week there, Len.
Bye, Keith. Have safe travels.